Ethan Turner always brushed off the little things. A cough, a rash, a strange ache that lingered. He was 32, healthy enough, and the kind of man who thought if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't matter. The small, dark mole on his upper back was just another one of those things. It had been there for years, tucked under his shoulder blade where he could barely see it in the mirror. It was Clara, his girlfriend, who first noticed the change. One morning, as Ethan stepped out of the shower, she froze mid-sentence. "Ethan, what's that?" He frowned, reaching over his shoulder but touching only damp skin. "What's what?" "The mole," she said, moving closer. "It's darker. And, wait, it looks swollen." Her voice carried that edge of concern that meant she'd already imagined the worst. Ethan chuckled, brushing it off. "You're overreacting. I probably just scratched it." But a week later, the itching started. Not the casual kind that went away with a scratch, but a deep, crawling irritation that made his skin feel alive. Sometimes it came at night, sharp and sudden, like a current running under his flesh. He tried not to think about it, told himself it was probably an ingrown hair or a bug bite. Then came the night Clara woke to find him in the bathroom, shirt off, staring into the mirror with wild eyes. "I swear I felt something move," he muttered, pressing a towel against his back. "Like something's under there." Clara's stomach turned. When she got close enough to see, she gasped. The mole, if it could still be called that, was puffed up, the size of a grape now, with faint lines beneath the surface, as though something was trapped inside. By morning, Ethan couldn't take it anymore. Clara drove him to St. Mary's Hospital. The waiting room smelled like disinfectant and stale coffee. Ethan sat hunched, one hand on his back, trying not to scratch. Every few seconds he flinched as that odd movement rippled beneath his skin again. When Dr. Patel entered the exam room, she was calm, efficient, the kind of doctor who had seen everything. Or so she thought. "Let's have a look," she said, pulling on her gloves. "You said this started as a mole?" "Yeah," Ethan said. "It's been there for years. But lately it's been moving. The doctor's tone was skeptical, but she leaned closer, shining her small pen light across the spot. The mole glistened slightly under the light. Then unmistakably a subtle twitch rippled through the skin. Dr. Patel blinked. "Did you see that?" murmured one of the nurses beside her. Ethan's heart began to race. "So it's not in my head?" "No," Dr. Patel said quietly. "There's definitely movement. We'll have to make a small incision to investigate." Ethan's throat went dry. He lay face down on the cold table while the nurses prepped the instruments. The metallic scent of antiseptic filled the room. He heard gloves snapping, trays clinking, and the steady, calm breathing of Dr. Patel behind him. "Try to relax," she said. "This will be quick." The first cut was small. Ethan barely felt it, just a sting and the warmth of blood trickling down. But then something shifted again violently, this time making the nurses jump. "What was that?" one whispered. Dr. Patel leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. "Suction," she said, "and keep the light steady." Ethan gripped the edge of the table so hard his knuckles turned white. "What's happening? Is it?" Before he could finish, Dr. Patel made a second, deeper incision. The skin parted and something slick glistened inside. For a second, everyone thought it was just tissue, until it moved on its own. "Oh God," one of the nurses gasped, stumbling back against the wall. Dr. Patel's hand froze midair. Her voice trembled just slightly when she said, "It's alive." Ethan turned his head, but the nurse pressed him down. "Stay still," she hissed, though her own voice was shaking. Dr. Patel picked up a pair of forceps, her gloved hand steady though her breath had quickened. Slowly, carefully, she reached into the wound and gripped the edge of whatever was wriggling inside. Ethan winced as pressure built beneath his shoulder blade. Then came a sickening wet sound, and suddenly, something long and pale slithered free from his flesh. A shriek echoed through the room. One nurse dropped the tray, metal clattering on the floor. Another pressed her hand to her mouth to stop herself from vomiting. The thing wriggled in the doctor's clamp, a thin, fleshy, worm-like creature, maybe 4 inches long, slimy and translucent, its body pulsing faintly like it had a heartbeat. Ethan felt his stomach twist. "What the hell is that?" "Get it off me." Dr. Patel quickly dropped it into a glass specimen jar. The creature hit the bottom with a soft thud and began thrashing wildly, coiling and uncoiling, its body slapping against the glass. The sound was faint but horrific, a wet tapping that made everyone's skin crawl. For a moment, the entire room was silent except for Ethan's ragged breathing and the faint hiss of the air vent. Then the nurse nearest the door whispered, "That thing came out of him." Dr. Patel finally spoke, her voice controlled but low. "It's a parasite. Some kind of botfly or subcutaneous larva. He must have been bitten. Maybe while traveling. I went camping in Brazil 2 months ago." Ethan stammered, his voice barely a whisper. "Could that—" "Yes," Dr. Patel said grimly, still watching the jar. "They can lay eggs under the skin. The larvae feed and grow until they're ready to emerge." The nurse gagged. It was eating him? Ethan stared at the jar in disbelief, the reality hitting him in waves. His back throbbed, but the pain was nothing compared to the nausea that twisted inside him. That thing had lived under his skin, breathing, feeding, growing. When Dr. Patel finally turned away from the jar, her calm professionalism returned, though her eyes were still wide. "We'll clean and stitch the wound," she said. "You'll be fine, but I'd like to run some tests, just to make sure there aren't others." Ethan froze. "Others?" She didn't answer immediately. She just looked at him, and then at the faint redness spreading down his shoulder blade. "Let's take this one step at a time." The nurses moved quickly now, cleaning the wound, applying antiseptic. The smell of iodine filled the air, but their eyes kept darting toward the jar where the creature still writhed, tapping against the glass like it wanted out. Ethan tried not to look. He focused on the sterile ceiling tiles, counting them, breathing slowly, telling himself it was over. But in the reflection of the surgical light above him, he could still see the faint movement of the parasite inside the jar, the proof that something had been alive inside him for weeks. When the stitches were done, Dr. Patel sealed the jar, labeling it carefully before handing it off to a lab tech. "Take this straight to pathology," she said. "I want it analyzed immediately." The nurse nodded, her hands trembling as she carried it out of the room. Ethan sat up slowly, his hospital gown sticking to his back. Clara stood in the doorway, pale and speechless. "What did they pull out?" she finally whispered. Ethan looked at her, his face ashen. "Something that thought I was home." As the door closed behind the doctor, the jar disappeared down the hall, still rattling faintly, like whatever was inside hadn't given up yet. The hospital lights flickered once. Ethan shivered. For the first time in his life, he understood what true horror felt like. Not from ghosts or monsters, but from something that could grow inside you quietly, waiting for the right moment to crawl free.